you guys want to, Virginia, do you guys want a map, an agenda for the next
Sure.
meeting?
That's an extra.
Oh, you can follow along. Thank you.
If there's an extra one, Allison.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Did you not end up with one after all that? Does
Passed
Michael-
mine all out.
Michael, you got one?
I printed it at home.
Oh, you don't want the nice color.
Oh, sure, I'll take the pretty blue one.
So we don't have on the questions that we can.
Oh, they're in the.
They're in the
other one.
You directly flipping to a page, so I don't miss it.
Page 47, I think, of 59.
Okay, Mr.
Go
Chair,
ahead.
you have to call the meeting to order.
Sorry?
You have to call the meeting to order.
Yes, well, as soon as I have my information together, I'll do just that.
Okay.
All right, well, so let's call the meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. We have, my word is always apologies and regrets from several people. We've got regrets from Jonathan and also from Bruce McTaggart, who's our newest member. Are there any other regrets?
That's it.
Okay, well, thanks very much. So, approval of the agenda. Are there introduction of any late items?
There are no late items that I'm aware of.
Thank you very much. We can go on without motion. Oh,
Your list of questions isn't on the agenda, I don't think. The list of questions that Brian's pulled out from the
Oh,
public.
it's 5.2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. 5.2.
Oh, questions from King, okay. I'm
It's just
looking
the
at
questions
blue
themselves
highlights.
are not in this
Yeah,
material.
right.
They're in the other.
any other matters associated with the agenda? Introduction of late items? Well, adoption of the minutes of September.
We need to move her in a secondary to approve the agenda.
I'll
Sorry.
second the agenda. Or do I have to
No.
move it? Okay.
Essentially
We
moved
can
it.
move it. Maybe we have a second.
You already have a majority before we vote.
Yeah.
Do the all in favor.
Oh, I'm in favor, I said.
And we must have a vote too? Or
Yeah.
do we not, we can't move forward by assent?
You can do unanimous consent, yes.
Well, let's move forward with unanimous consent then, shall we? Unless there's an objection.
Second without objection.
Thank you. The adoption of the minutes.
Two corrections there. Poor old Don never does get his name spelled right at the bottom of page 3. And
It's
in
half
the middle
correct.
of page 4,
Oh, wait.
Yes, yeah.
middle of page 4, there's a whether missing between as to whether King Edward Bay will be able to continue to supply. And then my favorite one,
Which,
it's Jonathan Burke, meeting chair, inquired as to whether King Edward
Okay.
Bay would be able to continue to supply. And then my favorite one, the second last line, the committee held a general conservation. It's clearly on everybody's mind. So subject to that, I would move adoption of these minutes. And that just proves
as
that rare.
amended, as amended.
As amended.
Any other comments about the minutes?
I'll second.
Then we can move forward by assent.
Yes.
Public comments. An opportunity for members of the public to comment.
We're just sitting here.
So no comments from the public, so we can move on without motion. Election of the chair.
I would move that Brian Thomas Peter be chair and that Don Heth be vice chair and that nominations close instantly.
There's two other people not here and you're not accepting anything, is that what I'm taking?
So we have a motion that wraps up 4.1 and 4.2 together. Are there any other comments that someone would like to make or nominations to be made? Can we move forward by assent then?
Yes.
Certainly, as long as nobody's in disagreement.
Let's please do then and move on to new business. King Edward Bay Water System Annual Information Meeting Follow-up. So the water system overview. This is I'm in the chair, that's true, but I'm not sure that it's me that should be taking this item particularly. And let's follow up on some of the matters that were raised.
Yeah, okay, I have a couple. I see on the 2018 municipality financial statements that the 7 water systems are valued at $8,768,668. That's the current value. It's in the 2018 financial statements.
That would be the amortized value of the asset.
Exactly. My calculation, the amortization rate is 2.9% or 3%, is that right?
Well, it would depend on what the asset is.
It would depend on
The age of the asset.
And
Okay,
also
the
whether-
average.
whether
these requirements for
them.
depreciation after
Yeah.
the number of years. They go by flat
Okay.
rate over a number of years.
And, but you are getting, Raj, you've already said that you'll get me the original cost. So if I could also get details as to the amortization as it affects both Kingill Bay and Blue Water, if they're separated out. And that gives rise to my question, whether or not any aspect of that amortization is taken into account when setting the amount of the contribution of Blue Water.
Now, look, the way your committees are structured, I'd be happy to provide that for you, but any requests for information, you need to request council to direct staff to
Oh.
do that in your meeting, because that's the way these committees are established.
Well,
So,
you were so freed about answering questions earlier, I'm very disappointed.
and that was an information meeting and I was answering questions,
Okay,
but
well,
as
we'll
far as
raise
the
that one
LAC goes, any requests of staff need to go through council. So any information that you're requesting through staff should be
Okay.
made to council to, as a,
Oh, yeah.
what's the proper word called? As a
A recommendation.
recommendation to council, thank you.
Okay, we'll do that. Then my supplementary question is whether or not that amortization is taken into account in calculating the amount that Blue Water contributes for the use of our infrastructure. I think that's really what they're doing, the water is free, it's the infrastructure that they're using. So we'll add that. But that just gives you a head start,
Okay.
and then you can hope that the council approves that.
But the simple answer to that is we don't
Yes.
budget to collect amortization.
Okay.
It's a non-cash item, so setting rates and everything doesn't include amortization.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be,
Yeah.
but my concern though is the increased production surely increases the wear and tear on the system.
Indeed.
And so the question is, how is that taken into account in terms of compensating Kingill Bay? That's my real question. So,
So that may be answered when
So-
we find the details of the calculation
mm.
for the cost.
Yeah, that's forthcoming anyway, the details.
Yes.
But I wonder if it needs in this meeting, just to summarise it, a proposal or a motion to request formally the algorithm for recharging. Does it need that? Or are we going to see it without such a motion here?
So the formula or the algorithm, I think we've been gone over.
We mentioned
In the
that in the
meeting,
meeting, but formally
yes.
for this meeting.
So for this, I mean, in terms of, again, yes, in terms of any information that you would like provided from staff, it needs to be a request to council, or a recommendation to council.
Does it have to be voted on at an LAC meeting, or can it come from a letter with, say, a majority of LAC members?
I believe it needs to be a
Well-
recommendation of this.
Okay,
It can come as a letter with a request in it, and then it would just get added to the next available council agenda under correspondence, because you're requesting action, so it can come either way technically.
Oh, I see, okay.
So if you wanna wait and pull your information together later and send it through a letter to council, then
Mhm.
it'll go on an agenda under
Yeah,
correspondence.
But in terms of providing information, I mean, I can tell you I can provide information at this meeting, that the formula for the past 5 years has been, as I had mentioned, the percentage of water that Blue Water used relative to the total production of water from KDB. That percentage would have been recovered, would have been contributed as water revenue in King Edward Bay, based applied to the expenditures for the year.
But just to get to Michael's point, which is the essential one here, is that the way it was explained to us verbally, and I don't think ever entered into the minutes, was that that's precisely what we're going to have. And if there was an expenditure during the course of that year, say we had to buy a pump or something, the proportion of water used by Blue Water would be the proportion of that new pump that would be paid for by Blue Water. In the same way that the quantity of water would be shared. However, what we're seeing is the deterioration of the long-term deterioration of our infrastructure as a result of the overuse, which is not being paid for. May or may not, the pump may or may not go in this year. It may go in 5 or 10 years' time, and it will go, and it should have gone maybe in 20 years' time, but we wouldn't get paid for that. We wouldn't have any return for that. So what we need is a written algorithm which incorporates both immediate use of our infrastructure and recharging in proportion to its use of various items like pumps that happen to go to that year, that's fine, but also the long-term maintenance.
So a contribution to the capital.
A contribution to the capital.
Capitals.
And these need to be partitioned out so everyone knows what they are and it's transparent. And so that's what we're asking of you. Can we have the document, an algorithm, which states this really clearly, so we can argue about it if we must, but at least it'll be clear.
Okay, maybe you have to pull that. This might help you, and I think we may be closer to that than all of us realize. This is what we used to get at information meetings, which is a breakout of the calculations for the production of water from KEB, the amount that went to Blue Water, and then the operational expenses.
Can I just for the notes?
Okay.
Can I just for the notes? Presumably we've moved from water system overview and the financial results. We've moved to item 4. We'll come back to the 5-year plan.
Yeah. Anyway, this was just something for you, Raj, to look at. This is what was done in the past, and I think it's consistent with what we've been asking for and maybe what you had in mind in your explanation too. That is, it's the percentage times the operational expenses plus the distributions from the capital reserve. That's what I see there. So this, I think, again, all of us have talked about wanting to have either an MOU or some kind of recognition of how this is done, so that we're really clear, and so that in fairness to Blue Water too, they understand things as well. So anyway, all I'm saying is that this might be something to cross-reference when you can provide that information.
Was this out of an information meeting in 2012?
2016.
Oh,
It's 2012.
but no, this is 2011, 2012.
I'm sorry.
2014. So,
I'm sorry?
okay, it was the 2015,
No, the 2016 meeting.
which was the 2015 year.
Pre-boarded.
Okay, because I was busy, I've got a bigger version of that, and I was busy looking for it in a set of meeting minutes, and I started at 2011 and 12 and couldn't find those, so I've got it in.
It was the most recent one I could find, because I think we didn't have a meeting in 2017,
No, we
general
didn't.
information meeting,
Yeah.
so we didn't get that.
I don't have any objection to providing this, so why don't we just make a recommendation to council that future reports to the LAC, the operating results to the LAC include an analysis of the cost of water to Blue Water Park.
In accordance with our agreed.
Yeah.
Have you have that? Is that sufficiently clear to?
That way it's
as a
documented in the
recommendation?
minutes,
Okay.
and, I mean, there'll be a staff recommendation that will go along with that, and again, this is information that was provided to you in the past. I was not aware that this was provided to you in the past. I have no objection to, I mean, we do this calculation anyways to establish the annual revenue.
I think it helps
in the system,
transparency.
So I don't have any objection to providing that to you. It
Well, that's-
included under, it would help explain the revenue number, in fact, it would be an appendix to like the 15,937.
Yes.
So,
So we can move forward without a recommendation in respect of that.
No, there's a recommendation on the table.
Sorry, without a motion on that.
This-
So that's the motion, is it?
So we need somebody to move and second it and then vote.
Would someone move that recommendation, or shall I?
Sure. Whatever
Thank you,
works.
Michael. We need a seconder.
I'll second.
All in favour? Hand, show of hands. Anyone in dissent? We move forward, thank you. Okay. Is there any other matters? We're on annual operations and water quality report, which is what we're dealing with now, so let's continue with that.
actually. And it also overlaps with the water system overview, but it's something for Glenn. I was just curious, has the duty cycle of our pumps, did it change in the past year? I know it's probably has changed in this year, but was it okay last year? What I'm thinking of is, one of the other things we got, but not all the time, was we got some of the logs of the, coming from the pumps, showing.
That little graph.
Yeah. It looked sort of like my visit to the cardiologist.
Yeah.
So you probably know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it looked to me as if what was happening there was that Bob ran them on sort of a 50% duty cycle, so that it could rest half the time, basically. And he sort of would have it set so that when one was resting, the other might kick in and make it up.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the intention? Is that the ideal way to handle it?
Well, certainly, you like to not require all pumps to be operating at the same time, you like to, but you also want to wear them evenly. So, I don't have probably a succinct answer to your question without having a conversation with the operator. I did look at the pattern, and the pattern of this year doesn't appear to be anything obviously different from the previous.
Yes, that looked like me on the treadmill at my cardiologist.
But certainly it
this
does,
past summer.
it does change throughout the year for sure, because when the system is strained, the pumps will operate differently than when the system is not strained. So certainly the pattern will be, it does change season to season.
Yeah, there's this one. You can see, yeah.
Is there a request in?
Oh,
Just out of curiosity?
no, though I did find this useful. I don't know whether it has to be part of the report or not, but it was useful to see how our pumps are working, because as Brian said, we're kind of concerned about the wear and tear on them, especially if they're running all the time now as opposed to what they have been doing. Okay, good. So Chair, can I bring up a question? It is on operations, and basically I've been kind of interested in the question of how much water the King Edward Bay system does produce. Can you tell me that right now in a year or this past year? Or is that kind of?
Total King Edward Bay production in cubic meters 2018, 25,999 cubic meters.
Okay. 25,900?
25,999 cubic meters. Total
Okay.
production of King Edward Bay.
Actually, estimating from that sheet I just gave you, I'd come up with 25,216 meters, so.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah, okay. Now, what I would like to know, because I think it's important for us to understand, given previous comments that you've made here tonight and in the past at the annual general meeting for everybody, it looks like for the near term at least, we are going to be sharing water with Blue Water. So I'm trying to get my head around what that will look like. So out of that let's say 26,000 cubic meters, it would help me to know how much of that water is consumed by KEB users. You know, I think that's a more derivative statistic, but let me ask you if this is reasonable to do, which is to take the mean that you have, which was 29,700 imperial gallons per connection.
Yep.
There are 26 users.
Yep.
Since that's an arithmetic mean, we simply multiply those two together.
Yep.
And I come up with 772,000 imperial gallons, or 3,510 cubic meters. Now, my arithmetic may be off a bit. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
So I guess my question is, if we're at 26,000 cubic meters and King Edward Bay is using 3,500 of those, where is the other water going?
answer to that question. I think one of the other aspects that we are recommending that we do is what we call a water audit. And that is something where it's always understood and it's acceptable. There's always a portion of water that's unaccounted for. So when we do water audits and understand how a system is performing, there's always unaccounted for water.
But that's an awful lot of water.
No, I know, no, I'm just explaining,
Okay.
explaining the story, not to deflect the question. You're very right that in many instances, and these aren't the only two systems we're dealing with, in all systems, that the information that we have and the computations aren't balancing overly well, and we'd like to do and as part of the comprehensive assessment that I wish to recommend to council, as a component of that is to do a more comprehensive water audit to understand where that water is going and better understand.
It sounds to me like a red flag, and it's an easily computable red flag from the data that we have. So,
Can I just, I'm a math degree by training and an accountant. Are you saying there was only 3,000 cubic meters went through that pipe from Blue Water to King Edward Bay?
No. 26,000 cubic meters were produced, 3,500 cubic meters were consumed by King Edward Bay.
Oh, by King Edward Bay, okay.
based upon
So
the
there's
average consumption.
22,000 plus or minus.
I thought I
one
heard
would
you say
assume went to
Blue Water
Blue Water.
only. But you
But
said
of course-
3,000 plus or minus went to Blue?
Sorry,
22,000.
When,
And 22,000 is way more than 56% of 25,000.
yeah.
So
It's
what's up
consumption.
is the
It wasn't, it didn't run, what we know.
Okay,
because we had-
I misheard you. I thought you said 3,000 cubic meters went to Blue Water. And annual reports from 2014 said Blue Water had taken 14,000 and some cubic
yeah.
meters. In 2015, it went to November, it was 9,000 cubic meters. So I thought, well, 3 is just totally out of
You're
it.
looking for
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
consumption in King Edward Day, right? For 2018?
Yep.
I can grab it off my laptop.
I think it's important to do that. I don't mind pausing while we do that.
Excuse me for just a sec.
Thank you very much.
And at $15,000 in revenue, at roughly $1 cubic meter, that's 15,000 cubic meters. But I imagine the rate's a little bit higher.
Well, my math suggests that there is, oops, sorry, I put something over here.
Does anyone else want one?
So there's 3,505.
So say that again, please, sir.
3,000, based on the water consumption average, projecting that suggests that the consumption of King Edward Bay should have been 3,506 cubic meters.
And that's Don's number, yeah.
Plus
But he had 3,510.
approximately 14,739 given to Blue Water, is a total of 18,200.
So what was that number again, then? 14,700
739.
to Blue Water. Now that's as measured by the defective meters, right?
Well, we don't know that they were defective in 2008.
Well, we're beginning.
We might do now.
Sorry?
We might do now.
You found out they were defective in 2019, but I wonder if they,
It could be a source of the error, for sure, yeah.
So we're missing about 8,000 cubic meters.
So.
Which we know King Edward Bay didn't consume.
Yeah, because your meters, your average annual consumption was 29,700, so if we
Yeah.
multiply that
I
by,
think it's 69,300, but I'm just gonna confirm that with Banana, sorry. 69,300,
cubic meters.
yeah. This does-
The trouble is, half these stits are in gallons and half are in
Yeah, I
cubic
would- I
meters,
would
and
love if we just
I
stuck with
can't
one or the
convert
other.
this
Yeah.
quickly in my head.
It's totally.
Is that,
29,000.
that 220 gallons is 1 cubic meter, so that's where that 220 gallon limit comes from.
How many, 620 gallons is one?
Well, it's actually 219.96 gallons in a cubic meter of water.
Okay, 29,700 imperial gallons.
Got 61,290 for the total,
What do we do about
if that is the, well, that's not the year. Oh, do you have a column for the year?
Get my converter back to gallons.
I probably have enough for one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Try to tell me something about my...
29,700 imperial gallons is 135 cubic meters. And how many connections have you got?
26,
So,
pardon me. Mostly.
Thank you.
so what is 135
Almost the
times
last one.
26?
That's not the end.
Which I don't.
Thanks, Brian. I took care, oh, I didn't take the last one, thank you. Oh, those are good.
It's
Oh.
generally
Write that down.
standard and acceptable at 10% of the water is unaccounted for. So it's computing at 7,500 cubic meters. If we take off 2,600, it still leaves about 5,000 cubic meters unaccounted for.
That's-
Beyond the accepted.
Sorry, Glenn, I might have missed, did you, were you able to quote what the consumption was like at Blue Water, based on household consumption, is that what you were doing?
Well, I computed it based on the average, at Blue Water.
Yeah.
Well, Blue Water,
Well, no, let's not look
Right,
at those figures.
This,
Uh,
this is the water transferred to Blue Water, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not their
Well,
consumption.
let me try one thing,
Yeah,
but I want to be completely fair here. The only data I could come across was from last year.
yeah.
2018.
You, pardon me?
28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where,
So 700.
So just hang on.
You had a chart.
Hang on a moment, because it's going to be difficult to kind of minute some of this, and it won't be here on the record. There's another matter going on just here.
I'm wondering if, I mean, I
Here's the gallons.
that is, sorry.
Oh, you just gave me.
Yeah, it's what I
Yeah.
had.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's the value we computed, that approximately works out to 3,506 cubic meters.
Okay, so can we just get back on track? You finish your commentary, Don?
Well, I was asking what you were computing, was it, you were comparing the King Edward A figures, is that?
Yeah.
Well, I was just, I was computing King Edward Bay consumption, and I was just doing my own math to determine what quantity of water appears to be unaccounted for.
Okay.
So that's what I was computing.
Again, it may not be a fair way to do this, but in last year's meeting, you were able to give us a chart which gave the average consumption over the period from February 2017 to December 2017. And at that point, 153 users in Blue Water had an average of 21,900 imperial gallons. It wasn't stated whether that was inclusive or exclusive of those months. So if that's a 10 months span, then multiplying that by 12/10 and by 153 gave me 18,279 cubic meters. So that would be the household consumption in Blue Water Park.
Yeah. There's a lot of numbers. What I suggest is if you have a specific list of numbers that you like, then make that recommendation and
Yeah.
put the time in.
Surely we don't have to recommend to council that they look into this anomaly, I mean. Okay. Well, I would-
No, I don't think you need to, I recognize the anomaly, my comment was if there are specific numbers
Oh,
that
okay.
you're interested in seeing, then you specifically.
Okay, that's helpful.
I can look into it and compute numbers that are.
Well, can we then formulate it, because the size of this anomaly is really substantial. I mean, we're talking about an awful lot of water here. some of which has not been recharged because it doesn't fall into that rubric we have of about 52 to 48%. It's like British Brexit vote, you know. So, it's slightly similar to that. But because it's so different from that, I think we really need to get to the bottom of those numbers with a fair and reasonable estimate, and then reconsider the charges that have been going on accordingly. Is that reasonable? I don't think that's fair. Can then perhaps the best way to do this, rather than try and work it out at the table, is to ask Dawn to complete this argument in summary form and request a reconsideration of the usage and charges associated with water past the blue water. Is that reasonable?
Well, just to be a little bit contrarian, I'd be comfortable with the engineering department and the financial department taking a closer look at that to see if there's something, because it's probably hard to track down.
Certainly will be, yeah.
And unfortunately, the meter issue is another complicating factor. So at this point, maybe if you could take that under advisement to look at that, I mean, and it's an issue we could take up next year.
It's a long time till next year. That would be my view. I don't know what others people think.
The meter was repaired long before the leak was repaired, so that's the other challenge is, try to eliminate variables. And we have the opportunity to do that. We can look at the history since the meters were repaired, prior to the leak being repaired, to see what the trend is.
Well, perhaps I'm trying to get at what I don't want is to strip away for another 12 months. It's too important for that.
That's the question I have is, we have these last meetings and the information meetings annually, although I think every so often a year gets skipped. Given the current situation with water and the current concentration of the residents on water issues, is it possible to have last meetings more often? In fact, it strikes me that the amount of information that we are seeking now, when that's available, I think that would justify a meeting in itself. Hope, do we need to make a recommendation to council? Okay.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I would move that we
We made, Dunstall Bay do that yesterday. They wanted to have a second meeting.
Chair can call a meeting whenever.
Chair can.
Chair, I can just call the meeting.
Oh, can you? I thought you
could. Well, by
Chair can call
by
a meeting
convention.
whenever he wants, but by the same token, I mean, we have to take into consideration, we have 7 different water systems.
Of course.
We have limited resources on
Yes.
staff, so staff may not be available to attend every meeting that's called by a chair.
No,
So.
I agree. So I'm reluctant to do that, and that's why by
Yeah.
convention we've allowed the municipality to take the lead in scheduling meetings.
Yeah.
But there is an important matter here.
Yes,
We're talking about a huge amount of water that's gone unaccounted for,
yes.
and that's not been recharged to a system which has been depleted as a result of producing it. So we have to resolve
Yeah.
that matter.
So as Hope indicated, I guess the chair can call a meeting
Right.
whenever they want at the LEC.
Well, can I perhaps enter into the minutes then, on the at the end of this meeting, if you could just take a note of that we will be seeking an extra meeting when we're notified that Glenn and Roger had the opportunity to review the figures presented at this meeting by the members of our LAC. So we'll try and summarise those figures for you to do, and then we'll try and find a mutually agreeable time when we can get together for perhaps a short meeting at your convenience. That be all right? Is that all right, Hope? We can do that. That's fine. Good. Thank you. And we've got a couple of other issues that we want to attend to. Are you content with that?
Would you like me to leave you with this? I'll show it to you afterwards and explain what I did.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to address the public meeting, and in particular the leadership shown by Mayor Ander and Councillor Morse when the question came up about planning and conditions to planning. So I actually have a motion written out. Hope you don't need to write it down.
And Michael, is this regarding the meeting of August 22nd?
That's right.
Yeah, that's item 6.2.
Oh, I might,
You're ahead of
well,
the
that's
game.
an information item there, so I'm elevating it.
Yeah. So we're still at the moment
Okay.
in new business. Any matters associated with new business, if you'd like to bring them forward, that would be helpful.
So
Questions from residents?
now you're gonna do
Questions for
5.2. No.
So we've got to move back to 5.2, which is the financial results.
No, 5.2 is this one. The questions. Or the questions from residents that are.
Sorry, 5.2, sorry. I mean
Yeah,
5.1.2. 5.1.2.
Ah,
If we haven't talked about the 2018 financial results, is there any matters that wish to raise associated with the financial results of
okay. Somebody had
2008?
questions, if they didn't.
No, actually, I managed to
Okay.
get them answered during the information meeting, thank you. All answers are pending.
So, answers pending and addressed elsewhere. Thank you. Let's move on to the next. That's 2. That's the 5-year plan. That's the 5.1.3, 2019, 2035 5-year plan. There was some discussion at the meeting, at the open meeting, about the revision of that. And I just from my, because I must have blanked out for a moment, I didn't actually hear in that revision whether that was going to be within the year or in the next year that you were going to do that revision.
That revision will be done for the 2020, 2024. So we'll be working in the fall on the 5-year financial plan for 2020 to 2024.
And presumably in that issue, in that,
And that 5-year financial plan will replace the previous 5-year financial plans.
in that time though, we would have had another 5 to 10% rise in our number of connections. So the question is that presumably you're going to be taking in the new assumptions about the growth of that area.
That's
in
correct.
the new one. Thank you very much. Are there any other issues associated with the 5-year plan? Thank you for that. We can move on. I think we've done all of these items, haven't we? We've come back to complete the 2 we missed out. And now we'll move on to item 6, information items. Notes from the King Edward Bay Water System Annual Information Meeting held on September 6, 2018. Notes.
They're just there for information.
They're there for information. We can move on. 6.2. Notes from the West Side Water System Information Meeting dated August 22nd. Michael.
Oh, I don't feel like it now. Yeah, I have a motion, and I'll just read it out, that King Edward Bay Black approve and endorse the definitive confirmation by Mayor Ander and Councillor Morse at the August 22nd, 2019 public meeting that the arrangement between King Edward Bay and Blue Water Park Water Districts is that King Edward Bay Water District will supply only excess water as a backstop to Blue Water Park Water District's own supply.
I'd really prefer you didn't.
Here's my problem. To my way of thinking, that was the most significant moment of the meeting, and it was in many ways the only substantive moment of the meeting. And I admire you and Mayor Ander for responding to some people who you knew disagreed with you.
It was also buttonholed as this
But
was going out the door.
you know what? It's not in the minutes of that meeting, so it's as if it never happened.
That comes up in the issues that we were hoping to raise. I have to say that we've skipped by the questions from King Edward Bay minutes for Bowen Island Municipality, which we'll come back to. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to take a moment?
Well, we're just doing this one, and I may or may not get to the others.
Okay.
So, I mean, technically speaking, we've got a proposal or a motion on the table, and so we've got, we need someone to second that. And I'm prepared to second.
Well,
Are you?
no, go ahead.
I'm prepared to second that, and then we have a vote on it. Unless there are matters that we need to speak of first.
Well, I would like to hear from Councillor Morse why you were concerned about it.
Well, I guess all I was doing was repeating history. and what the original, my understanding of the original agreement, and Judy had used the word, supply, I think, and then said, then at the end said a backstop, and so I just picked up and said a backstop was the intention, not, you know,
Yes.
that was, so it was more a history, you know, what had been intended at the time.
See, the problem we've been facing is that there have been various interpretations of that history made public. Not all of them consistent, and as it turns out, not all of them accurate.
Yeah,
Insofar as Mrs. Bryan's research, your comment is accurate,
yeah.
and yet it's not actually being recorded anywhere. And I just find that,
Well, can we just maybe leave it and we'll find out where the minutes stopped and, because it looks like,
Minutes right here.
yeah, I know, but I think all that they've recorded is the question.
no,
That's all that
there
was
are
to be
minutes
recorded.
that are being submitted to council, which makes it all more important.
Are there?
Not that we took.
Well, apparently that apparently my understanding is they're not being submitted to council.
They're not? Okay.
They're not.
We were provided with draft minutes.
Must have been, they're not something,
These are the minutes.
this is it.
A community meeting minute would not be submitted to council normally, that's as I understand
So
it.
that's correct.
No, and it's not minutes, it would be notes. So the relevant thing, I think, was, because we got the PowerPoint presentation, so the relevant thing was the questions that were asked. So I guess,
Actually, no, the relevant thing is the answers.
yeah, well, the questions, and, yeah, you're right, Brian, the answers to the questions. So I guess your concern is that Judy's question isn't there, but it was the statement more than a question.
But there was a response that was
Yeah, so,
from fairly critical.
okay, can you leave it with Hope and I to talk to Steph, who is taking the notes, and see if she was just asked to record questions?
She
She
was,
was.
she was, I
Okay.
spoke to her
That
about
was
it.
in my direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so,
I spoke to her about it and.
so by doing that, you're trying to change, I mean, there's a whole bunch of statements other people made that weren't recorded.
Well, that may be, but they weren't as relevant. And we could have motions on those too.
Yeah.
I know this is going to cause a little bit of discomfort for you all, so I'd rather not do that, but at the same time, it's such an important matter,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, but changing the minutes is one thing, and I can understand that there are various protocols as to how the minutes are
Yeah,
set.
yeah,
But-
well, they're notes, but, yeah,
The gist of the motion is to endorse that position.
okay,
And don't forget, I mean, there's a positive aspect of it too,
Yeah.
and that is that this LAC is accepting the fact that excess water from King Edward Bay can go to blue water. I mean,
Yes. In a sense, yes, we're endorsing the original. But here's a possibility then. Here's a perhaps compromise, I don't know, what do you think about this? Is that we pass that motion here, or we put it to the table, to the LAC, but we don't request within it a change in the minutes. So it's in our minutes.
sure, I didn't
Yeah.
understand how yeah.
yeah, because I think staff recorded what Hope had asked her to.
I don't think Hope did anything wrong in this.
Yeah, and so, we
So
can-
that's not the point. The point is that the way the minutes were constructed,
well, they're notes, not,
they're notes, but they're still, that means they could be more elaborate than they are.
yeah,
So I'm calling them minutes because of the minutes, they have to be of a particular type within the strategy of the,
yeah.
so let's keep calling them minutes, please. And,
Could I ask maybe a question and then a suggestion?
Yes.
One is that, Allison, it was told to me by someone that it's not conventional to cite the names of the people who comment
Yeah,
in these, which is why I did not specifically would mention the thing about the fixed amount. Except that it's relevant that it comes from a muni official or someone speaking to it.
What are you gonna say, an unnamed mayor? And
Yeah, something along those lines, I was wondering. But it just endorses the definitive confirmation that the arrangement.
Yeah, and I
Take
think,
that
I know it's
name.
important that there be, nowhere else is there a public record of that. So this will be
that's
it.
true. Well, I think that Any other, do you have any other comments
Well,
about
I
it?
guess
Like-
what I was saying was my understanding of everything that was going on at the time.
Yes.
But there's the, I haven't read the PLI that was issued for the King Edward Bay subdivision. So if there was.
I have.
Yeah. How did you get a copy of it? And I haven't got a copy. We got it from Howard at least.
You need to look at the agenda of the, I think it's May 3rd, 2014, of the Blue Water Park LAC meeting.
In the
Okay,
LAC.
tell you what, why don't I do this? Why don't I change definitive confirmation to statements? Because you cannot doubt that, I mean, it was a statement you made.
Yeah, it was a statement I made.
And
Yeah.
yes, I tried hard to elevate it to legislative force, but apparently have failed. And I really don't want to do anything at all to offend you.
Oh, you're not offending me, I'm just
Or
saying, I
even
think
make
it's
you
just,
uncomfortable.
it's not, you know,
Because this, of course,
it's
is going
just
to be public, so,
not, it's not making me necessarily uncomfortable, I'm just thinking it's gonna.
yeah, I will amend my motion to say endorse the statements by Mayor and Councillor Morse, et cetera, and I would seek my seconders. Yeah,
And remove the section about amending the notes.
and she has a copy of it already,
Oh,
so.
you're good, yeah.
And
So-
apparently you can strike out the second motion I gave you.
It wasn't even on the table, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so we're not going to make reference to changing the notes, and we just changed the wording slightly to soften it, and make it slightly less discomforting. Okay.
If there's a document, just a comment, if there's a document that state what you want to be heard that you feel has been forgotten, can you submit
We've done that.
as a recommendation for council to consider?
Well, we've done that so often. We've got, they're pretty clear, pretty unequivocal notes that council has already considered and the chief operating officer has. And you've seen, in fact, some of it. I'm not sure that we need to do that. I guess what I'm trying to do is underplay it a little bit, but make sure that this is captured so we don't lose it to history. It's a really important moment for us. So now that we have a proposal which is clear, could someone just read it clearly so everybody has that motion?
That the King Edward Bay Water System Local Advisory Committee approve and endorse the statements made by Mayor Ander and Councillor Alison Morse at the August 22nd, 2019 public meeting. And that the arrangement between King Edward Bay and Blue Water Park water districts is that King Edward Bay districts supply only excess water as a backstop to Blue Water Park district's own supply.
Can we take out the word only?
Sure, I just,
District will supply
excess.
Excess water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it makes a difference to the sense, but it does
Mhm,
make,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
fine, yeah.
Actually, that's pretty consistent with the discussion of the minutes of the KEB LAC at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a clear motion, we have a proposer and a seconder, all in favour. Hands up. Pass, thank
Carried
you.
unanimous.
All against, anyone against? Said none, thank you, passed that, thank you very much, that's helpful. Okay,
We didn't talk about the water master plan yet, and.
there's quite a bit,
Can we come to that, Ron?
there's quite a bit we
Mr.
haven't
Chair?
talked about.
Okay.
So, being as we're running out of time, what do you guys want to do about the questions?
So we have a list of questions for King Edward Bay, that's actually number 5.2. I skipped over 6.1 because it was raised.
I thought that most of the questions were answered in the
It's
course of
page
information.
6, I have a, page 6 of the agenda.
Page 6 of the agenda, 47 of the larger document.
Yeah. Well, this is the questions from the King Edward Bay LAC dated August 30th.
Mhm, yeah.
So they're all covered up. I think you have, actually.
Yeah, my sense is that they are, I don't know.
Let's just review
The
them
last thing
quickly.
about minutes, I guess that's been addressed indirectly.
It has.
Well, is there anything else in the answers that you talked about inaccuracy?
Well, there was that thing about the $10,000.
Okay, well, we fixed,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
so
one
we
of the-
So
clarified
we fixed that
yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah, okay, so we're done.
I think we are done with those.
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections to moving on to, sorry? Okay. Next meeting,
Sorry?
is it next meeting we're going to, or is there another?
Well, I was
issue?
gonna talk about the water plan, the water master plan, it showed up.
I do apologize, the water master plan.
It's in the information, it wasn't covered in the information session, so I assumed that it was for us.
Oh, yes, of course, I do apologize for that. We're very nearly there, aren't we?
It's the follow-up
So, this is the,
Oh, here it is, it's page 46 of the information. And we talked a little bit about it when I got into the asset replacement values.
Yeah, it's 0.3 on it.
So there's a question at the end of that presentation about whether the cost would be divided by the total asset value of the system or by number of connections. If asset value is asset replacement value, by my math, each King Edward Bay user would end up paying $540. Each Blue Water user would end up paying $165. That's provocative to say the least, and I'm sure it's not intended. So
Did you do?
I would
math on number of
recommend that we go by number of connections, and I noticed you did that for the truck.
That's been our standard historical way of allocating
Yeah,
things.
so, and I was going to recommend that the cost of any water master plan be allocated based on the number of connections, but if that's gonna happen anyway, I don't need a motion.
Yeah.
can I just raise another issue associated with that before we get into a recommendation? And that is, this is a island-wide master plan that's being proposed. Why are only the 7 LACs paying for it then?
Because the municipality has no control over the rest of us.
But it's an island-wide water plan.
Well, I know it's,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's certainly, I mean, those, including myself, who have a private water system, I'm fully responsible for everything that happens on my property, from my perspective.
We want to be too.
It's, from my
You should have
perspective,
commissioned to be a utility then.
It's a study of the systems that are the responsibility of the municipality.
So it's not an island-wide
No,
program at all.
No, it's
It's
public.
In which case, that raises a slight, because we're never going to be connecting Eagle Cliff and Bowen Bay, not in 100 years. So there's a question about how the study should be partitioned and where the biggest need is. So I think, a blanket proposal to just use connections as a way of charging for this seems inequitable from the start for me.
So I guess and that raises the question, how mature is this proposal for the water management plan? I mean, you're just sort of putting it forward now, or?
What you see right there.
Okay.
That's how mature it is.
I take it you'll be asking council for the $300,000 at some point, or?
Well, I have to articulate a scope and a purpose, and there's all kinds of details.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to come.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
guess that's what I'm trying to find out, so
Absolutely.
I don't really need to
Salt
react to
Springs
it at this
just had a
point.
big
No, I
grant
think
for
what,
doing the same
what you
thing.
can use during this will come forward during the budget process.
Okay, so
Requests
we
will
can
be made
speak to
during
it
the
then.
budget process, so when we have our public consultation,
Yeah.
I would urge you to come to the public consultation to the budget, and which was attended by one person last year.
Yeah, I meant to talk,
And
I was gonna.
that is where the water
No.
utility budget is presented to council as well.
You have forgotten already, Raj, the first proposed date for the budget proposal was snowed out,
It was, yes.
and I was gonna be there.
So it's
But then the alternate date,
You couldn't.
I was
Yeah.
out of the country. So, this year, pick a date that's not gonna snow.
Absolutely, right.
I certainly tried.
Isn't that in your job description?
As you can tell, I like the numbers, Ron likes them even more. We will be there.
But there is a,
That's the proper forum that for dealing with this.
That's the proper
Okay.
forum for dealing with this.
Oh, forget the rest of my paper there. Cross them all off.
Oh, okay. I'll just get back to
You got that?
I mean, I think there really is an issue about 300,000 being used for that purpose when the need is absolutely so clear in Blue Water. You know, they're short of capital expenditure, and we're going to spend 300,000 on something that's actually not going to provide any capital change. So there is an issue which I know people are discussing. So I understand you want to start from an informed base. I get that, absolutely get it. But you know, the equities of how that's paid for and whether that's the priority right now, that's another issue at all. And we'll get a great deal of pushback from
Is
people
it-
then.
One of the primary outcomes of this is to define strategic capital investment too, right? An outcome is to set direction and put priorities to them.
And with you in spirit, just, you know, I think there's more to it than that at the moment. Okay, well, we're not going to progress on that one, but thank you very much for that contribution anyway. And we're down, I think, are we?
You
Might
could
we
be happy by looking at point 2 where there's zeros beside King Edward Bay.
Oh, yeah. Although, could I ask, I had heard by one developer that some of these sensors run on batteries that expire and can't be serviced, at least according to him. Are the monitors that we have proof against that? I mean, are they okay? And they'll continue to function?
As far as I know, they're all hardwired, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, the ones that we've installed currently in Blue Water as part of the short-term program are battery operated, but the intent will be to end equipment and installation with hardwired.
All right, so again, another feature that, about our system.
Okay.
I saw more than I knew 5 years ago.
So we've run over time a little bit, but thank you very much for your indulgence. Next meeting is to be determined, and it's going to be determined on the basis of the speed with which you can feel able to review the figures that you've been offered, and a secondary meeting at a time and place of your convenience. And am I right in thinking that we're going to have to approach council about arranging that or not?
No.
No, okay. Are we content with that?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A seconder? Is there
Require a
anyone,
seconder.
is there anyone who disagrees with that? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.